It is 6:14 a.m. on a Tuesday, and Sarah is sitting at her laminate kitchen island, staring at a spreadsheet that hasn't changed in 3 years, despite how hard she's been running. The house is quiet, the air is still, and the only sound is the low hum of a refrigerator that she knows is probably going to need a $400 repair before the month is over. Sarah is 45 years old. She has a decent job, a mortgage that is finally more equity than debt, and a retirement account that looks okay on paper until she actually does the math on what a gallon of milk or a kilowatt of electricity will cost in 10 years. She is doing everything the books told her to do in 2012, yet she feels like she is swimming against a tide that only gets stronger the closer she gets to the shore. If you are watching this, there is a very high probability that you are Sarah. You are living in the gap between the financial milestones the world told you to hit and the reality of a 2026 economy that doesn't care about your plan. Today, we are closing that gap. We are going to look at the cold, hard numbers of where you actually need to be, why the standard advice is failing you, and the exact psychological shift you need to make to stop the bleeding. But before we dive into the data that the banks don't want you to calculate, I need to ask you for a favor that actually helps us build the roadmap together. If you've ever felt that tightening in your chest when you look at your bank balance, or if you've realized that the average numbers on the news don't look anything like your life, hit that like button right now. It tells the algorithm that this conversation matters for people our age. And more importantly, I want you to head down to the comments and type one word: ready. By doing that, you're not just engaging with a video, you're drawing a line in the sand. You're telling yourself in this community that you are done guessing and you're ready to see the real scoreboard. Subscribe and join us, because the path to 2046 starts with the honesty we're about to share right here. Let's start with the ghost that haunts every 45-year-old in America, the milestone. We've been told since our 20s that by the time we hit the mid-40s, we should have 3 to 4 times our annual salary saved up. If you make $80,000, the brochure says you should have $320,000 tucked away in a neat little 401k. But here is the reality of 2026. The median retirement balance for a 45-year-old right now isn't $300,000. It isn't even $100,000. It is hovering right around $65,000. That is the reality. That is the person standing next to you in the grocery line. The milestone is a fairy tale written for a world where houses cost 3 times your salary and healthcare didn't eat 20% of your take-home pay. We are living in a moment where the average is a mathematical lie used to sell you mutual funds, while the reality is a middle-class trap that is tightening every single day. The reason you feel like you're failing isn't because you're bad with money. It's because you are playing a game where the rules were changed while you were in the locker room at halftime. Think back to 2012. You were 31. The world was recovering from the Great Recession. Assets were on sale. If you had capital then, you caught the greatest bull market in human history. But most 45-year-olds today weren't investors in 2012. They were survivors. They were paying off student loans that had 6% interest rates, while savings accounts paid 0. They were trying to get into a housing market that started sprinting the moment they reached for the door handle. You didn't miss the boat because you were lazy. You missed it because you were busy building a life during a decade where wealth was being redistributed upward at a rate we have never seen before. Now, let's look at the sandwich trap that no one warns you about in your 30s. At 45, you aren't just managing your own money. You are the chief financial officer for 3 different generations. You have a teenager who needs a car, a college fund that looks like a joke compared to tuition hikes, and parents who are hitting 75 and realizing that their golden years are actually expensive years. This is the escalation of the crisis. You are the safety net for everyone above you and everyone below you. When your mother needs assisted living that costs $7,000 a month, that money doesn't come from a magical government fund. It comes from the money you were supposed to put into your brokerage account. When your 23-year-old moves back home because entry-level wages can't cover a 1-bedroom apartment, that's your grocery bill jumping by 30%. You are being squeezed from both sides, and the financial milestones you read about in magazines don't account for the cost of being a good daughter or a supportive father. This is where the tension becomes unbearable. You see the top 10% on social media, showing off passive income streams and early retirement, and it creates this curiosity loop in your brain. What do they know that I don't? Is there a secret button I haven't pressed? The truth is both simpler and more frustrating than a secret. The secret is that the middle class is being systematically priced out of the traditional work, save, retire model. In 2026, the cost of a basic middle-class life, housing, transportation, education, and health, has outpaced median wage growth by nearly double over the last 15 years. You are running on a treadmill that is set to a 10% incline while the person telling you to just save more is standing on flat ground. But here is the insight that changes everything. We have to stop measuring wealth by the total number in the account and start measuring it by the time window. At 45, you have exactly 20 years of peak earning potential left. 20 years. That is 240 paychecks. That is your runway. The mistake people make at this age is looking backward at the mistakes of their 30s. They spend so much time mourning the Bitcoin they didn't buy or the house they should have sold that they paralyze their ability to move now. The reality of 2026 is that the milestone doesn't matter. What matters is the delta, the difference between what you earn and what you keep starting tomorrow morning. If you're still with me, it's because you know deep down that the old map is broken. You're looking for the new one. And if this breakdown is hitting home, if you're realizing that your failure is actually a systemic reality, do me a favor. Share this video with one friend who is also in this age bracket. We need to break the silence about these numbers because the shame of not having enough is what keeps us from taking action. When we talk about it, we take the power back from the banks. So, what is the solution? How do we take a 45-year-old with $60,000 in their 401k and a mortgage and turn them into someone who can actually breathe in 2046? It starts with the aggressive realignment. You have to stop playing defense. Most people at this age are trying to save their way to wealth. You cannot save your way out of a systemic squeeze. You have to optimize. First, we look at the debt. In 2026, the biggest drain on the 45-year-old isn't the mortgage, it's the lifestyle creep that was forced upon us by inflation. We have to ruthlessly audit the leaks. I'm not talking about lattes. I'm talking about the recurring subscriptions, the insurance policies you haven't shopped in 5 years, and the car payments that are eating 15% of your take-home pay. Every dollar you claw back from a corporation is a dollar that goes into your freedom fund. Second, we have to talk about the home equity illusion. Many 45-year-olds feel rich because their house has doubled in value. But unless you plan on living in a tent, that equity isn't liquid. It's dry wealth. The reality of 2026 is that you need to find a way to make that equity work, or you need to downsize sooner than you think. Waiting until 65 to move to a smaller home is a 1990s strategy. The 2026 strategy is to look at your home as a tool, not a trophy. Can you move to a lower-cost area now while remote work is still a viable option for many? Can you use a HELOC, carefully, to invest in an asset that actually produces cash flow rather than just sitting there as drywall and shingles? Third, and this is the most important part of the 2026 guide, the second engine. If you are 45 and you only have one source of income, you are in a high-risk category. In the age of AI and rapid industry shifts, your stable job is a single point of failure. The milestone you need to hit isn't a savings goal, it's an income diversity goal. By the time you are 47, you need to have at least $500 a month coming from something you own, not something you do. Whether that's a small digital business, a fractional real estate investment, or a high-yield dividend portfolio, you need a second engine. This isn't about hustle culture, it's about survival math. The pacing of the next 10 years is critical. Between 45 and 55, you will likely see your highest expenses, kids in college, aging parents, but you will also see your highest earnings. This is the great squeeze. If you can keep your lifestyle at the 40-year-old level while your income hits its 50-year-old peak, you can do more for your retirement in 5 years than most people do in 20. It's called the sprint. It requires a level of discipline that most people aren't willing to endure, but most people are going to be working until they're 75. You have to decide which pain you want, the pain of saying no to a new car now, or the pain of saying yes to a shift at a retail job when you're 70. Let's talk about the success mindset versus the legacy trap. Many 45-year-olds are struggling because they feel they have to provide a certain level of luxury for their children that they themselves didn't have. They are over-leveraging their own future to pay for private schools or expensive sports leagues. This is a mistake. The greatest gift you can give your children in 2026 isn't a paid-for degree. It's the certainty that they won't have to financially support you when you are 80. By securing your own oxygen mask first, you are breaking the cycle of the sandwich generation. You are teaching them the reality of money in the new economy. As we move toward the conclusion of this guide, I want to reinforce one thing. The clock is your greatest enemy, but also your only leverage. $500 a month invested at a 7% return over 20 years grows to over $260,000. That's not private jet money, but it is I can sleep at night money. It is the difference between a retirement of dignity and a retirement of desperation. If you start today, at 45, you are still in the game. If you wait until 50, the amount you have to save per month doubles to get the same result. The price of delay is the most expensive thing you will ever buy. The reality of 2026 is that the middle class has changed. It is no longer a place you arrive at and stay. It is a territory you have to defend every single day with data, discipline, and a willingness to ignore what the neighbors are doing. The neighbors are likely broke and hiding it behind a leased SUV. You are here because you want something different. You want the truth. I want you to take a second right now and think about that one financial milestone you've been beating yourself up for not hitting. Is it the savings account, the house, the debt? Whatever it is, I want you to drop a comment below and name it. Just naming it takes away its power. It turns a monster into a problem, and problems have solutions. I read every single one of these comments because they help me understand what we need to tackle next in this series. If you haven't already, subscribe and turn on those notifications. We are building a community of people who are refusing to be victims of the 2026 squeeze. Finally, remember Sarah. Sarah didn't find a magic lamp. She didn't win the lottery. She just stopped looking at the spreadsheet with fear and started looking at it with a plan. She sold the car she couldn't afford, she sat her kids down and had an honest conversation about college costs, and she started that small side consulting gig on Saturday mornings instead of scrolling through the news. She realized that the average 45-year-old in 2026 is in trouble, but she is not average, and neither are you. You have the guide, you have the numbers, and most importantly, you still have the time. The finish line hasn't moved. You just have to start running a different race. As you close this video, don't just go back to your day. Do one thing. Log into one account. Change one contribution. Cancel one subscription. Make one move that proves to yourself that you are in control. The reality of 2026 is whatever you decide to build starting right now. This is your midlife pivot. This is your guide to 2026. This is where the reality meets the road, and where you finally start standing on solid ground. We often talk about the big numbers, the millions of dollars needed for a safe retirement, but we forget that a mountain is climbed one step at a time. For the 45-year-old in 2026, the first step is often just admitting that the old way is dead. It's admitting that the college degree you got in the early 2000s isn't the shield it used to be. It's admitting that the economy we were promised in high school was a different version of reality. Once you accept that, you stop being angry at the world and you start being focused on your own household. You become the CEO of your own survival. Think about the compounding power of your experience. At 45, you have something a 20-year-old doesn't. Context. You've seen cycles. You've seen bubbles burst. You've seen can't-miss opportunities disappear. Use that wisdom. Don't chase the newest crypto meme or the latest get-rich-quick scheme that's flooding your feed. The 2026 guide isn't about speed, it's about stability. It's about building a fortress that can withstand the next 20 years of volatility. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought about your net worth. Your net worth is a number on a screen, but your life worth is determined by how much of your time you actually own. The goal of this guide isn't to make you the richest person in the cemetery. The goal is to give you back your Tuesday mornings, to give you back the ability to sit in your kitchen with a coffee that is actually hot, and not feel that tightening in your chest. That is what we are working for. That is the ultimate financial milestone. Thank you for being part of this journey today. This community is growing because people like you are tired of the fluff and ready for the reality. If this video gave you even one piece of clarity, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed for the deep dives coming next week. We're going to be breaking down the specific investment vehicles that are actually working in this 2026 environment. You don't want to miss that. Stay focused, stay disciplined, and remember, the best time to start was 10 years ago. But the second best time is right now. I'll see you in the next one. We have to understand that the middle-class trap is often a psychological one. We are conditioned to believe that we must maintain a certain outward appearance to be considered successful. But in 2026, success is having zero credit card debt. Success is having an emergency fund that can actually handle an emergency. Success is not being a slave to a paycheck. If you have to drive a 10-year-old car to make that happen, drive it with pride. That car is a symbol of your freedom. That car is a symbol of the fact that you are no longer playing a losing game. When we look at the financial milestones versus reality, the biggest milestone is the one where you stop caring about what the neighbors think. When you reach that point, your expenses drop, your savings rate skyrockets, and your stress levels plummet. That is the secret viral factor of financial health that no one talks about. It's the IDGAF fund. It's the ability to walk away from a toxic job because you have 18 months of cash in the bank. That is the dream. And it is a dream that is still accessible to every 45-year-old who is willing to look at the reality of 2026 and say, I can work with this. The world is changing fast. The numbers are getting bigger. The risks are getting higher. But the opportunities for those who are paying attention are still there. You are now one of the people who is paying attention. You have the data. You have the plan. Now go out there and execute. Your future self in 2046 is waiting to thank you for what you do today. I'll be watching the comments to see your ready messages and to hear about the milestones you're reclaiming. Let's build this future together. One paycheck at a time. One decision at a time. One day at a time. This is your life. This is your money. Take it back.